Well, I've been trying to catch a mouse, so I'm calling this segment Mouse Hunt. And there's not exactly a mouse, but it's a vole, V-O-L-E, kind of a field mouse, very smart. And I want to show you some clips of just how smart they are. And while we're doing that, we're going to talk about storytelling and the different schools of storytelling. In particular, I'm going to be an advocate for existential storytelling. And so we'll talk about the way in which storytelling has kind of lost its sense of the spirit. But let's take a look at this mouse and just how smart the little fellow is. Begin with a series of questions. Well, I'm going to say that we need to ask the question why storytelling has fallen into the fallacy of social constructivism. So a lot of people say storytelling is just a social construction and is without any kind of force of its own. And here Heidegger, in the book that I'm looking at, the Metaphysics, is about asking the question, what about a storytelling that lacks spirit, that dumps all the spirit out of it? And it's pure social construction with no force of spirit. And that brings us to the second question. What is existential storytelling? It's a storytelling of being there, or what Heidegger in Being and Time calls Dasein. Dasein. So we're going to explore this notion of existential storytelling and show how it's different than a number of different kinds of storytelling, such as just pure sense-making storytelling or persuasion storytelling or identity storytelling or so-called grounded theory storytelling. All of these kinds of storytelling are without spirit and have done what Heidegger calls falling away from being. And storytelling has taken on, as particularly organizational storytelling, kind of an emptiness without essence. And that essence here is the primordial aspects of storytelling. As we watch the mouse play in the background, we're going to try to understand this vole, V-O-L-E, and why it's congregating around the stove here and of an old mobile home that I purchased, two mobile homes my wife and I purchased, and we're renovating both of them. But we want to ask the question now, has storytelling come to an end? And here we echo Walter Benjamin's notion that storytelling has come to an end, but also Gertrude Stein, and we'll add to that Martin Heidegger, who says that with the advent of modernity, with the rise of rationalism, utilitarianism, pragmatism, the science of storytelling has taken over in ways that have left it without spirit, and it's fallen out of being. It's no longer our primordial existence. Now, I tend to focus on storytelling as very historical and very future-oriented, and so do a lot of other people. But the way in which, if we look at storytelling that's fallen out of being, it's no longer about beingness, then what constitutes history turns very shallow, and what constitutes the future turns out to be a utilitarian technical planning and the movements of organization and organizational development. All good movements, but not in the league with existential storytelling. And that's why we need to ask kind of questions that aren't being asked of storytelling. In particular, what is this existential storytelling? And it is a storytelling that's about being there. This mouse is being there in its world, right? And it's in the human world. And I've done some investigation, and I've moved the stove, and behind the stove is a cord, and this cord goes through the mobile home down into its underbelly there where the skirting is and the pavement and, well, a concrete on which it rests and blocks on which it rests. And the Vole climbs up the wire of the electric stove. And so I plugged it up yesterday, and you'll see a number of traps that I put around. But this mouse is very, very smart and resists every kind of trap that I can come out. So all of my dreary technology traps, the bucket that has a spinning wheel on it, and it's kind of like a log roll, and you're going to fall off on either side, or one that has a little plate that tips, and the metal cage, little plastic traps. And these are all catch and release, by the way. But the existential storytelling helps us understand the spiritual decline of civilization and our notions of nature that are without spirit. Here, you can see the spiritual energy of this little field mouse, the Vole. But in an era with the flight of the gods, the destruction of the spirit, the transformation of humans into social media, the way in which we categorize our storytelling and thematize it, all of these ways can leave out spirit and make our storytelling spiritless. So I'm interested in an existential storytelling that doesn't end up in the historical materialism of Karl Marx and his rendition of Hegel. That's kind of a spirit of historical materialism in Hegel, and then just historical materialism as in economics without spirit in Marx. So I'm interested in another kind of storytelling we call existential storytelling, and how certain decisions and ethical choices are made when we consider our primordial. That's our birth to death notion of being there in the world, and the birth to death of the animals of the world too, including the vole that you see behind me. So I'm interested in a historical spiritual existence. That's what Heidegger talks about in the Metaphysics books. And what is the center of this metaphysical existence? Well, here at Thinkman's Circle, we're looking at asking questions that aren't normally asked of storytelling and doing some thinking outside the box of storytelling. That's whether it's persuasion storytelling or sense-making storytelling or organizational storytelling, or identity storytelling, etc., or narrativity elements of Aristotle. All of those kinds of storytelling are without spirit. And it's kind of the normal thinking about storytelling that's taken over in our century. And if we look back at Heidegger and what he's done, I'm going to give you 4 aspects of Heidegger that he develops. And I worked on this morning, so it's a bit new. And I want to say that what's called organizational storytelling has migrated far from existential storytelling. And the key here is 4 aspects of the misrepresentation of spirit that have taken over storytelling. First aspect is treating storytelling as a misrepresentation, a kind of an intelligence, a cleverness, a calculation, Organizational storytelling is of this kind. It treats spirit as an intelligence, if it treats spirit at all. And there's some things going on that are never true of spirit. Spirit gets falsified and when you treat it as an intelligence or a cleverness, and Hegel did that. The second aspect of storytelling, I'll get to in just a second. An aspect of storytelling intelligence and its misrepresentation is when it becomes reduced to a tool. There's a lot of storytelling tools, and the distillation of organizational storytelling into a set of practices for production, and it's kind of not that far from historical materialism or into an empirical positivism called grounded theory. And we thematize it and categorize it and write diaries about it, but it's a misrepresentation of spirit. The third aspect of the misrepresentation of storytelling as an intelligence degrades spirit as a tool, but then degrades it further as to just planning the future and planning the organizational culture and setting up the standards and the cultural values of the organization, kind of a McDonaldization of storytelling into basic values of, I don't know, cleanliness and standardization and the technical aspects of storytelling that's without spirit. The final aspect, the fourth aspect of storytelling and the misrepresentation of spirit is intelligence and reduction of it to the practical of organizational culture, comes down and makes storytelling very utilitarian. And Heidegger gives a critique of its decline in Marxism, but also just in modernity itself, where the science of storytelling takes over. So as we watch the little mouse jump about and notice how intelligent this species is, I say that taking a Native American point of view, that animals have spirit. And here I'm going against Heidegger, but why not say that each animal, plant, being, and being there in the earth itself is spiritual. So I'm kind of a radical existential storytelling.